like I'm not teaching you anything new today. It's literally, we're gonna count the slope off a line, rise, run, okay? And I've got it on the board here, clearly it's gonna be in your notes. We're gonna calculate the slope, hopefully that formula looks familiar to you, between 2 points. It's pretty, we're gonna write some equations in slope-intercept form. 6 hours told me I didn't teach them anything new, so you probably have the same feelings today. Now, if you are on the graph grid, we're going to count the slope using rise over run. So you can see over here in the picture, just remember rise is vertical, run horizontal. Doesn't matter which point you count between. So I could start here at the bottom left and count to the top one. You'll get the same answer. Now, why do we like slope? Well, if your slope's positive, we know the line rises left to right, negative falls left to right. Horizontal always has a slope of 0. The reason is if you pick 2 points on here, you don't have a run. You'll always have 0 over whatever number, which is 0. And vertical lines are always with an undefined slope, because if you count that, let's say your rise is 2, your run is 0. You don't go left to right. You can't divide by 0. If you type in your calculator 2 divided by 0, it gives you a little nasty error message. 0 under the line, undefined. All right, let's count some slopes. Now, doesn't matter which point you start at. I'm starting with this one. Counting to the other one. Rise, 1, 2, 3, down 3, and the run, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. So I'm going to say my slope, which we use the letter M to represent slope. Got it. Now, I'm not going to do this every problem, but I'm just going to prove to you if you started at the other point, if you start here, you get the same thing. To go to the other point, your rise would be 3. Your run, you go to the left. So you have 3 over negative 4, which is the equivalent fraction to it. So it doesn't matter which point you start with. All right, I'm going to start with this one. Rise up 2, and then I have to go left 2. So since I go left, negative 2. Now, we should simplify this. That turns out pretty nice. What's 2 over negative 2? Got it. And we should always, this goes without saying, of course, in here, we always reduce our fractions. We always simplify. Same old, same old. Seems like Algebra 1 days, doesn't it? All right. Pick your point. I'm going to start at this one. I'm going to count to the other one. The rise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's the run? 5 over, what's the run? Hannah, say it. 3. Now 4, I can look at it and just tell you with no work. It's vertical, so what slope is on all vertical lines? Undefined. And again, if you're like, oh gosh, I can't remember if it's undefined or if it's 0, and there's no points on it. Well, there are. Pick 2, any 2. Rise would be 3, run 0. And if you type 3 divided by 0 in the calculator, it gives you an error message. You can't divide by 0. All right, any questions on counting slope? Have I taught you anything new yet? Nope, sure have. So the first front side of the homework is this easy. It's a bunch of pictures of the lines you are counting the slope. Now, you don't always get the picture of the line. Sometimes they just give you 2 points on the line. So then we're going to use this formula. My favorite was I showed this slide 6th hour, and I go, what formula is this for? A kid yells out distance. I'm like, people, I don't know. I had nothing for it. I had nothing. All right, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's the formula we're going to use. Fill that in on your note sheet there. I'm going to write that guy in. And it's on the board. I put it on the board so it's in front of you. I think some of you are already doing the problems. That's all right. Okay, I'm going to get dramatic, of course, on the first one because that's how I like to roll. I'm going to label the points, first x, first y, second x, second y. And then, of course, we're just going to subtract them. So here we go. So y2, so negative 6 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So on the bottom, of course, I feel like this is such a math teachery thing to say. Watch your signs, of course. We know minus and negative is really a plus. So I have negative 9 over 7. And we're just going to double check quick before I circle it. Can you reduce 9 over 7? Yes, no? No. All right, piece of cake. All right, same thing. Do you have to label the points x1, y1, x2, y2? No, no, I just, for dramatic emphasis. Second x, second y. All right, so y2, which we have marked as -8, minus y1. You got your double negative there. We're going to be careful. x2. Oh. What do you got on the bottom? Ooh, interesting, 0. 0 under the line. Okay, now, make sure our cell phones are away. We're focused on math, people. Question. I could have told you it was going to be undefined with no work when I looked at the points. What do you pick out on the points, Ty? Say it. Say it. Yeah, the x's are the same.
Bro, it's
the threes.
The threes.
So when you subtract those x's, I knew it was going to be 0. X is on the bottom. You can't divide by 0. There you go. You could have saved yourself some work. All right, let's try this one. Of course, x1, y1, x2, y2. So just more of the same calculation. y2 minus our y1. x2 minus x1. Of course, as always, be careful of the signs on the bottom. So -3 on the top. What do you get on the bottom? 4. We can't reduce it, circle it, call it a day. Okay, same thing. I'm going to live on the edge, and I'm not labeling this time. What's y2? What's y1? Guess what? I'm done right now. What's your final answer? 0, because I'm going to have 0 over whatevs. Could have you figured this out without doing any work? The y's are the same this time. So if you can catch that, if you have like same x's, same y, Kyle, put your phone away, please. You can do a little less work, of course, for your 0 and undefined if you catch that and see it. All right, moving on. Do we remember how to graph lines? I hope. Do you remember the name of this form this equation's in? Slope-intercept form. Now, it doesn't ask you on here, but on a quiz next week, it might also ask you to write down M and B. So let's just review, because you might be a little rusty on this, who knows. What number represents the slope, -2 or 1? -2, the number in front of x. What does the letter B stand for? Y-intercept. What is our y-intercept? Now, I'm going to nitpick that a little bit. I do like the 1, but hang on. Y-intercept, any intercepts, or technically, get ready for it, points on the graph. Points. So you have to write it ordered pair style. I don't know if Algebra 1 made you do that or like nitpicked that, but you do have to start writing that ordered pair or coordinate style. Okay, we're going to plot 0, 1 first, of course. And from that point, you're going to count out your slope. Now, I'm going to get fancy and write my slope as a fraction, so I know my rise is -2, the run is 1. So down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. Now, no specific amount of points you got to put on the graph. I usually do 3 just to try to help my lack of drawing skills draw a straight line. Okay. Any questions on that guy? Now again, it doesn't ask you, but just, I'm thinking about other things coming at us in our quiz. If I ask you for M and B, what number is the slope for letter B? Y-intercept. And I like the ordered pair. Thanks, Ben. All right, let's plot our 0, -4 first. 1, 2, I didn't mean to mark that. All right, let's plot our 0, -4. Let me recount 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Now, slope a third. So from your y-intercept, from your point, we're going to go up 1, right 3. Up 1, right 3. And draw it. I'm guessing you know how to do this too, right? Is this anything new? No? Okay. Any questions on these? Do you miss proofs yet?
No.
All right, y equals x. Just thought I'd ask. What's the slope on this one? 1, the number in front of x. What's your y-intercept? 0. We really have plus 0 at the back. So we're going to start this one at the origin. And now I'm gonna count out my slope of 1. Rise 1, run 1. Rise 1 or 1 over 1, got it. Just for fun, this is also called the identity function. So it's a fancy name. Okay, oh boy. X equals -4. Interesting. Is that in slope-intercept form? So this is one of our special types of lines we're going to start seeing pop up, horizontal or vertical. Now if you're like, oh man, I can't remember. Well, okay, think your way through it. X equals -4. I'm going to start with a point on the x-axis at -4. So if I said, what do you think it is now that we see that point? Do you think it's going to be a horizontal or a vertical line? Vertical. And here's why. All the x's are -4. So I'm like, oh, this would be -4, 1, -4, 2, -4, 3. They all have x coordinates of -4. Now, how would that line be different if it said y equals -4? Yeah, go sideways, horizontal. Just had to ask. I had to ask. All right, last thing we're going to do today is convert some equations or rewrite some equations into our slope-intercept form. So I want them in that y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to first get rid of 4x by subtracting it. Or I can't help myself. I'm going to use my subtraction property of equality. You're welcome. You're welcome. You don't seem as excited about that. Okay, question. In theory, it doesn't matter if I write 16 minus 4x or -4x plus 16, but it wants slope-intercept form. So remember, x has to come first. You have to put the -4x before the 16. All right, last up to get y alone, let's divide off this -2. And our final answer is -4 over -2. I'm going to simplify that. 16 over -2, -8. There we go. And of course, they asked, which they're not, slope is 2, y-intercept 0, -8. All right, let's do that. This one's easy. To get y alone, what's the only thing you got to do? There we go. Okay. Now remember, x first, so I have to put the 3x, then the 7. Okay, let me ask this before we do the last two. Have you done this stuff before too last year? Does this seem familiar? So I've taught you nothing. Okay, all right. Just thought I'd ask. All right, let's do these last two. Let's get x or y by itself. I'm going to get rid of 3x by subtracting it. Now, be conscientious here. Catch that the y has a negative on it. That does matter to us here in a second. I'm going to put the x first, and then our 5. So we do need to get the negative off the y. How are we going to do it? Divide by -1. I'm not even going to write that, because what happens when you divide by a negative to the signs? They switch. So I'm just going to switch them all. Positive y, positive 3x, minus 5. Got it. All right, last one of the day. I feel like it's Algebra 1 today. I'm going to subtract x. Kind of nice, get a little break from the proofs. So I'm going to put -x first and then -7. And last but not least, you get y alone. What is your last move? Too easy. Okay, so how are you writing this -x over 3? What's the best way to write that? I don't like this. 1/3, good, because that's really a coefficient. And we want it that style so you know your slope is -1/3. Ooh, I'm glad we don't have to graph that with all the fractions. Got it. Any questions on any of that? Man,